Today's session is hosted by myself, Quinn. A lot of you may have seen me on previous webinars. I know we've been running them since all the lockdowns, and we've had great success with them. So I do business development here at Scanning Pens and primarily with primary schools. And I will be taking the session today, and we will be looking at minimizing disruption between teaching and assessing. So we're going to be looking at establishing literacy needs for your students, which I'm sure you guys are constantly doing, but we've got a fantastic resource, the Literacy Passport, which is a number of things in here that I'll touch on today and then let you know where you can get more information on that if you want it, or if you'd like to use it in your schools and in your classrooms. And that's really about establishing the literacy needs of our students before we go on into looking at, as we all inevitably do in the summer term, how we're going to carry out assessments. Now, I know this year it's all a bit sort of, I don't know if the right word is up in the air, but it's all a bit sort of an unknown. It's quite different for everyone in terms of your summer term assessments this year. But what we want to look at is how the ReaderPen as a reading intervention or literacy intervention can be used to seamlessly transition between learning and assessment work. So when you are taking these assessments, or more correctly, when your students are taking these assessments, they have the interventions or the support measures in place that they're confident using, that they've been using, and that can help them succeed. And with that in mind, the last bit I've got on here is teachable tips for dyslexic learners at assessment points. It's all about succeeding with dyslexia. It's a big sort of, I guess, strapline for us as a company. And hopefully I can provide a bit of information today on how we can support that. Now, like I said, some of you may have seen me on a number of webinars, and some of you may be using ReaderPens already in class. If you're not and you haven't seen them, I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the features and the benefits of using a ReaderPen before we delve into the topics that I've just mentioned at the top there. So here on your screen, you've got a graphic which just shows the ReaderPen itself, which is a nice, sleek, sort of, I like to say, highlighter-sized device. So, it enables it to be inclusive. It's what we refer to, I guess, as mid-level tech. So it's not dramatically expensive. It doesn't take a huge amount of implementation, but it's offering a high level of support. So that's kind of the level in terms of technology support that the ReaderPen sits within. And then the graphic here shows the core functions of the ReaderPen. So the text reader, the dictionary, scans file, and the recorder, and then I've got the settings in here. So I'll just bounce through what they offer and really the sort of the core features of each one of those, and then we'll go into the crux of the session today. So the text reader, as you can imagine, is all about providing literacy support for students with any reading difficulty. Of course, the core of our work comes with dyslexic learners, but the text reader itself is designed to be able to scan over any printed text and read that back to you instantly. So whether that be one word, one line, a paragraph, or a whole body of text, a full activity, whatever it might be that you need to process and take off the page and decode by hearing it audio through the audio, then that's what the text reader is there for. You just simply scan over it nice and softly like you would with a highlighter pen. So it's nice and easy to use. And we provide support for anyone sort of wanting to implement the pens in terms of techniques and how to use them, especially with younger learners who, do take a bit of time to get to grips with new interventions. I say that and I smile because often they're the ones teaching, I know you guys in class, about sort of how to use the text. So yeah, often they're completely fluent with it quite quickly, but we do offer support in terms of getting going with it. So the text reader is there, and like I say, scan over words, and as you can see in the graphic there, those words will then appear on the screen. So while I refer to this as being mid-level tech support, it is also what we always refer to as a multimodal tech support, which is obviously crucial for our dyslexic learners who like sort of multi-sensory stimulation. So we're enabling students here to not only hear the text and process the text, but as they're hearing it, the words appear on the screen, and actually as each individual word is being read, it highlights as well. So it really improves that stickability, and hopefully by getting that audio and that visual, it's really enhancing the ability of that individual to remember that piece of word or understand what that word meant. And moving on to the understanding of the words brings me on to the dictionary. So the dictionary, it includes a number of different dictionaries, which are the Collins Dictionary. We have French dictionaries, Spanish dictionaries in there if you are learning languages. But for the core of my work, which, as I say, is primary schools, and even for a lot of dyslexic students into secondary school, we have the ability to use the Oxford Primary Dictionary. So as you'd imagine, I'm sure you guys use it in class as a physical copy, but the Oxford Primary Dictionary just gives off a lot of really nice simplified definitions of words that students can just simply, if you, I mean, I take the graphic on the screen as an example. If we'd scanned over that text in a book, and rather than, you know, often spending so much time to decode the words and not actually enjoy the literacy, or decode questions that are in our exam papers and not actually get to the answering of it, what we're able to do is listen to it, and then we can highlight over an individual word that we didn't understand. We can hear that meaning read out to us from the Oxford Primary Dictionary, and then go back and hear that meaning, that word in a sentence, so we can understand it in context. So it really allows us to access a lot more text and understand a lot more text than otherwise we would be able to do so. So those are the text reader and the dictionary, and they're the core functions within the ReaderPen. The scan to file is something that is more commonly used as students get older and they revisit the same piece of text, maybe for English coursework, for example, or they want to take text from a book and upload it into the computer and edit it in a Word document, which is something you can do through scan to file. But I like to give examples of how I see these used at a primary setting, which recently I've seen a lot of students or a lot of schools using the scan to file as a sort of pre-teaching activity. So they're scanning over, let's say, an activity that we're going to use today in class. You know, let's say we're using this activity here. And then the questions on the back side of it, we might want to enable the student to stay up to speed with the classroom, work inclusively with everyone else, but yet independently. And this has happened a lot recently, where, you know, teaching support numbers have been diminished. Well, not diminished is the wrong word, but have been lowered due to the sort of teaching bubbles you guys have found yourselves in. So a lot of people have asked us for support with the scan to file to give students who maybe aren't confident scanning but need literacy support. So they are scanning these activities in and enabling the students to listen to them back as a whole activity and stay up to speed with the classroom. So that's just an example of how you might use it. But again, it's probably a side tool, if you like, compared to the text reader and the dictionary. And the last one's the recorder. So the recorder is, as it says on the tin, you can record into the ReaderPen and play back. And both the scan to file and the recorder benefit from a huge amount of memory. So you can literally scan pages and pages of text, or, you know, record absolute sort of minutes and minutes and minutes of voice notes into the recorder function. Now, again, examples of how I see the recorder used. A lot of Senkos are putting in messages of encouragement into the recorder feature for their students, and equally there's the ability to use it to sort of almost in a phonics sense, so sounding out words that they've struggled with. And actually a lot of students are using, a lot of teachers use the dictionary because it gives up a history of words that a user has scanned. And as we know, dyslexic students aren't often able to sort of highlight themselves areas of text they've been struggling with. So the dictionary history, enables them to, or enables their teacher or their parent or their teaching assistant to actually look through the words that they've been scanning and that they've been struggling with, and maybe use the recorder as a bit of a follow-up activity to that, in terms of those sort of areas of text that they've been struggling with. And then the settings. So I've kept this on here. Like any piece of kit, we have settings. You can change the time, the date, that kind of thing. But the key part of the settings for us is the fact that you can actually start matching the speed at which text is read back to the user to their processing speeds. So, like I said, if we use a text reader and we scan over some text, that either reads out loud via the speaker or the headphones that we've provided. And what we can then do in terms of how it's read back to us is we can add in a pause in between each word. So that's from 1 to 5 seconds word pause. And also you can do that with the punctuation as well. And I always say the same thing to schools using us at primary. You know, a punctuation pause may be irrelevant of the individual's processing speeds, can be very beneficial just for the fact that it differentiates clearly between a sentence or after any form of punctuation. And it really highlights punctuation to students at this age when it's a key sort of a key thing we're trying to implement into their literacy, if you like. So, you know, punctuation pause is really great for differentiation, but then the word pause is really enabling you to slow the speed of the text down so that it's read back to a manageable pace. So again, you can really personalize these settings to each individual. So that's just a quick blast of the functions. And I mean, I'll mention this a few times, but if you haven't got pens in school, you can request us to send pens in free. You can try them out. And then when you do have the pens in school, we run through all the settings, the functions, and give, you know, free sort of demo training and setups for as many teachers and even students as you like. Some schools think that's a terrible idea, getting us in front of the students, but others love it. I like to do it myself. So, you know, if you are interested in getting the pens into class and you'd like us to talk to your students, we're happy to do so. We live on Zoom or Teams or whatever it is now, so it's quite nice to speak to the students as well as the teachers. But yeah, benefits of using a ReaderPen. Now, some of these might be completely obvious to you guys, but I'll bounce through them anyway. Any assistive technology, in my eyes, is about promoting independence. It's about giving the individual the ability to learn by doing. I think that it's not the way that everybody learns, but I think a core amount of everybody's learning is by doing, by being able to do, and also by having the confidence to do. So we give someone a reading intervention like a ReaderPen and a support measure like a ReaderPen, and it is there to boost their independence, enable them to access text on their own that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do so. And that leads into the next point of building their reading confidence. So we want to enable students to have the confidence to pick up books and have the confidence to read in class and reduce any anxieties that they might have. And often, especially at primary, these reading anxieties that we speak about with students, they can lead into other areas of their life, which is the last thing we want at that age, and we want to reduce them as much as possible. So if we can give them the confidence to just scan over any words they don't understand and read and hear how they're spoken out, which is obviously a key part of it, and then be able to read that back themselves, that's brilliant. And we can reduce their reading anxieties and build their reading confidence. And that goes a long way to supporting students in accessing all areas of the curriculum. So, I sort of mentioned it before about building their confidence and giving them the confidence to access bodies of text they wouldn't otherwise do so. And I think we speak a lot to schools who they have students with dyslexia who are, extremely cognitively able. They might be extremely interested in other subjects, like, I always use the example of maths. So they're keen mathematicians, but actually the wordy sort of paragraph problem solving approach to maths that we all find ourselves facing nowadays, it just stops them getting to the crux of the question and answering the question. They spend their entire time decoding. And this is especially relevant for this session when we look at exams, because we don't want them spending so much time just being tested on their reading. We want to be able to support them in accessing all areas of the curriculum, the areas that they are enjoying and actually able to do. So if we can get the reading block out of the way by giving them a ReaderPen as support, then that really helps them access all areas of the curriculum, and also goes hand in hand with the next point, which is enabling students to access age-relevant text. It can be quite disheartening, I suppose, to students. We've had so many conversations, and it's replicated in a lot of our case studies that I can share with anyone interested at the end, which when we speak to students, it blew me away when I spoke to first students I met when I was at Scanning Pens with year 5 students, and a couple of girls, and they were saying to me they were very aware that they weren't accessing the books that their peers were reading, that their friends were reading, and that they were almost staying at the same level, if you like, and not ever being able to sort of develop their literacy further and read books that are engaging to them. So, giving them a ReaderPen that allows them to scan and ask the meaning of any words that otherwise would have just completely thrown them off the subject of the book and just meant that they were spending the entire time decoding. If the ReaderPen can support them in having the confidence to do that and access those books, then we're really doing our job. And I think when we do see it work like that, it is absolutely heartwarming. And obviously it's opening up their lives in a dramatic fashion, because we all believe, and I'm sure you all do, that sort of literacy is the gateway, isn't it, to enjoying your studies and then enjoying your life as you move forward. And a couple more benefits that I've got here is just about closing the reading gap in the classroom. So everything that I've said above is playing a part in closing the reading gap in the classroom. I think that there's so many studies and bullet points branded around about how wide the reading gap is in the classroom, or how many students leave primary with a reading age below the required rate to thrive in a secondary setting, and they're all true, and I don't want to sort of spend time dwelling on those, but I think anything that we can do to sort of give our students the best chance in closing that reading gap and enjoying their literacy and enjoying their studies, then the better. And I think we've done a lot of academic research and also a lot of case studies that, again, we can share that show that the ReaderPens do really help to close that gap, which is a great thing. Inclusivity and discreteness are big factors in the use of a ReaderPen. We don't want stigma. A lot of students don't like obvious support. The ReaderPen is small, it's sleek. Like I say, it's the size of our highlighter. You can use it with your one earphone in, so you can stay abreast with what's going on in the classroom. So it does make it really easy and almost a sort of cool tool, especially at primary. I know that the students who use them at primary school are almost sort of the ReaderPen lead, if you like, and it becomes a quite cool thing. But for me, I think early implementation of anything reduces stigma and increases the chance of success with it. So yeah, the inclusivity of the ReaderPen is great. And also it builds capacity for you guys as teachers. You know, I've spoken to so many teachers and learning support assistants that have just been overwhelmed, excuse me, in recent months. And actually, if you can spend time, you know, spend time with students that need pushing on to extension activities, that, you know, that if you can free up some of your teaching assistants' time to help support you building capacity, you know, then brilliant. So a lot of these students that might need a lot more constant reading support can benefit from the independence of the ReaderPen and therefore benefit you guys and even their parents at home who might struggle to support them as well with their reading. So that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of the benefits, if you like, of using a ReaderPen. And again, any questions on these, we can answer them individually and book sessions for you guys individually, but also there is a chat pod. So if you've got anything that comes up as we're going along, please do ask away. Now, I mentioned at the top, we want to look at the resources we've got to identify who is struggling with their reading. And I'm sure these are things that you guys are doing. I know people are doing baseline tests and that kind of thing when you came back into the classroom to sort of really see where everyone is. And I know there's a lot of support going into these tutoring programs into the summer. I know a lot of schools there. I know teachers, they're spending time over the summer to work with students who aren't necessarily at their required rate or have maybe dropped in terms of their reading abilities or their maths abilities over the lockdown period. So what we've got here with the literacy passport, which I can model here, is about 40 page document created by our head of education, Julia Clouter, who spent 25 years as a Senko. So really good experience in terms of knowing what's needed. And a lot of things within there won't be things that are new to you, but essentially it's how we can identify students' literacy needs and build a literacy profile. And then if we're going to use a ReaderPen, we've got support for that. So I've got here on my next slide a few examples of bits that are taken from the literacy passport, and you have things like the literacy information gathering form. So you can gather information on students and tick off against SPLD checklists, if you like, or indicators. So again, stuff that I'm sure you guys do, but it's all in one nice place, and it also allows you to sort of have this as an individual as your passport through year 4, year 5, year 6, and then more importantly as you transition into secondary school. You've got the reading intervention record card, which allows you to document what's gone well and what hasn't gone so well. Sorry. So this just enables you, I guess, to avoid repeating interventions that haven't gone well. I know the last thing students want is to try the same intervention again and again when it hasn't worked. So it's just a nice place to record everything, really establish the needs of your students. And also, if you are then going to use a ReaderPen, it has an individual education plan completely tailored to the ReaderPen. So you can, you know, you've got the, I mean, I can show you an example of it here, if you can see on my screen, but you've got the implementation plan. So find it. So the ReaderPen IEP here, and you've got the assess, plan, do, review sections there. So you can really make use of this. And again, this is a free resource that if you do want more information on, just let me know and we can book a session to run you through that. And we give this out with trials of the ReaderPen as well. So essentially, literally passport there to provide strategies, transition documents, and also to help build a literacy profile for your individuals. And so that's a bit about the literacy passport itself. And then what we want to look at is, you know, how or strategies to prepare dyslexic students for assessments. So there's 4 sort of keys for exam preparation, I think, that will make learning sticky, if you like. So we want to ensure that we've thought those through and we've thought about how we're going to support well-being, preparation for testing, revision techniques, and then exam techniques. You know, so we want to be showing students past papers, making them confident in how they look. We want to be working on revision techniques that can be taken into the examination. And look, we know, and I've got some nice graphics here about there's some bubble gum there stuck to the bottom of the desk, so I'm sure it's a familiar sight for some of you guys. But we know that stickability is about making links that work for that individual. So what might work for me might not work for you. Of course, that's obvious. And with many dyslexic learners, we see them benefiting from multimodal support that I've already mentioned earlier. So if we can give that multimodal support through the audio and visual support of the ReaderPen, so we're getting that multi-sensory approach to our support, then we can really help them for their preparation for assessments and exams. So, and I mean, especially when this support, the ReaderPen that we're talking about, can be used in their assessments. You know, it can be used when they're revising, and most importantly, it can be used in their assessments. So there's no change in terms of what they're getting in terms of their support from their everyday teaching and their learning to their actual assessing. The graphic there with the ReaderPen over the books is really just there to indicate that the ReaderPen can be the key to accessing the books. It can be the key to accessing your studies, understanding what's in the books, feeling confident to access them, as I mentioned before, and we're referring to making things sticky, which is really, really crucial for, I guess, any dyslexic learner every day, but especially when we're preparing for assessments. Now, this is some of you may agree with this slide, some of you may not. I think, what are the conditions that are needed to ensure that dyslexic learners succeed in tests? Now, when I say you might agree or not, we talk about exam papers essentially testing how well a student can read, and rather than their knowledge and other skills. For students struggling to read, the exam paper can feel, like it says here, like a complete straitjacket of sorts. It can be extremely hard for them to even understand what's going on, to understand what's being asked of them. And we want to establish the strengths of the dyslexic learner and develop them in their learning cycle, in their way, providing them with revision goals that are framed to support their active learning techniques, whatever they may be. And like we said, they're all different for the individual. And I know you guys, as their teachers, will, of course, be able to support them and understand their needs more so than anyone else. And then, relating back to the ReaderPen, we need to ensure that technology solutions are available. And you might think, well, why is that? Well, again, like all the things I've mentioned, we need to make sure any solution's available. And in this case, assistive technology solutions that help them read, because that can improve their confidence and improve their self-esteem, which can go an extremely long way in terms of facilitating their exam successes. So, we've got listed here: imaginative, creative, intelligent, articulate, insightful. These might be things that you associate with your dyslexic learners in school. I know for sure, when I'm speaking every day to parents and teachers, that is things that I hear about their, how they feel their dyslexic learners are well skilled. So we want to take away the sort of straitjacket feeling of the reading goal, or the reading block, and enable them to get to their skills, especially within the exam conditions. So yeah, I think we want to remove that exam straitjacket, and if we can do that by tech support, fantastic. And then this slide, so it is often everybody in life, in all walks of life, is talking about well-being and good so that they are. And well-being, you've got 4 common, I guess, experiences of dyslexic learners in terms of well-being. So anxiety, exams conditions and testing situations might not match their learning style, and that can build anxieties. Like I said earlier, the top, any sort of festering anxieties can just really run on into other areas of life, and we know that it can really sort of diminish everyday life for anyone. We're talking about young learners now, but even older people in the workplace, if you're festering anxieties every day about the things you have to do in work and not understanding them, it can really build that anxiety, which can lead to frustration. Number 2, which no one really knows how hard the dyslexic learner is trying, and that number 3 is inconsistency, because their knowledge can be gained soon and forgotten soon, and they might perform really well one day when they're taking in the information well, and then have an erratic performance with another task, and they don't understand necessarily why, especially at this young age, and that can, with number 4, lead to a distorted self-image. Now, I've got sort of the idea of this frustration and vulnerability and anxiety leading to feelings of like inferiority, where they've been told that they're not doing well and they've not met the targets. And I don't mean by you, but I just mean by society, in terms of I've not been able to access the exam. I know I've failed in the exam. I've not been able to read the books that my friends are reading, and all these things can lead to a distorted perception of themselves, or distorted self-image, which is making someone feel quite bad and overall sort of deteriorating their well-being. And we want to get rid of that as much as we possibly can. And I've got the archery board there because I was told a great analogy. I've tried to keep it with me in my presentations. It's like this: if you're being taught how to be an archer, or being taught archery, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but you're shooting your bow and you're missing the target by 3 meters, 10 meters, 50 meters, whatever it might be. You aren't going to be told how far you've missed by. You're going to be given instruction as to how maybe you can get closer to the target, right? Whether that's loosening your grip, tightening your grip, breathing as you let go. And these are the things that we want to try and give to students in terms of ensuring that they feel confident going into their exams. So, when we're giving them revision techniques, we need to match them to their stars, give them messages of encouragement, and give them reading support that can really support them in their everyday learning and then into their assessments, so they don't have this sort of issue with well-being when going into tests. And then we look at the Bloom taxonomies, which I'm sure you guys are all really familiar with, and I don't want to bang on about things from your CPD sessions and stuff like that, but here we're looking at essentially like a learning ladder, aren't we, where we're giving support. We want to give support to parts of the learning ladder that our dyslexic learners are really struggling with. So if remembering, understanding and applying is the things that as a dyslexic learner we're struggling with, then we want to sort of give support that not takes them away, but enables us to actually do them, and then get to the higher order thinking, where actually dyslexic learners thrive. The creativity, the evaluating, the discussing, analysing. These are skills that we hear from dyslexic learners that are, they're completely competent with, very competent with, and enjoy. And that's the thing, we want to be able to enjoy. And I think at primary, when you maybe don't understand your dyslexia, you don't know why you're not enjoying it and your mates are, right? And it is frustrating, right? So the fact that we can maybe give some support that improves engagement for our dyslexic learners, allows them to scan, listen, remember and understand, that is taking away the remembering, it's taking away the understanding, or not taking away, but enabling students to do it and get it, and it gives them that bridge to then start applying, and then creating and doing the things that really they enjoy. And that accessibility is then supporting that individual stickability, as it says here in the slide. And I think the key thing looking at assessments now is what we really should be, I guess, evaluating in assessments is the higher order thinking, the creating, the applying, the analysing, and enabling students to get to that part of the testing and the assessments, rather than getting stuck at the reading test, if you like. Then that is the key thing, and that will give them a fair reflection in their exam or in their assessments results, which is what we want to do. We want to give them a fair playing field, and want them to enjoy their learning. So that is in terms of how the ReaderPen can support that bridge and be that bridge in terms of getting to the higher order thinking. Then I've got another graphic here, which I've been over it already. So it's about, being able to read, being able to decode, being able to transfer that information onto your page and record. So I'm not going to go through this graphic again, but like we say, it is the bridge to being able to access literacy, which is, access to your studies is underpinned by literacy. We've gathered that, and if we can put this in as an intervention, then fantastic. And I always say that I'm sort of waxing lyrical about the ReaderPens. Of course, it doesn't work for every dyslexic learner. It's not like the nailed on solution, but for those students, and I know you guys will have them, that want to be independent, that want to support themselves, that are frustrated by their learning block, this can really be life-changing, honestly. Now, the last bit here, before we sort of wrap up, is about the use of the ReaderPen in assessments. So what we have, which is brilliant for this tool, and it means that you don't have to have different tools to support your everyday teaching and learning, excuse me, and then your assessments or your exams. We have a 6-digit exam lock. It's a teacher's choice. So all of the settings that we've seen today in the demonstration of the ReaderPen, things like the dictionary, the recorder, the memory functions, they can't be taken into an assessment for obvious reasons. So the exam lock enables you as the teacher to put a passcode on, like you might on your mobile phone, so no one can get into it. You are able to put a passcode onto your exam lock function of your ReaderPen. It's the teacher's choice. So the minute you've gone from learning and teaching into assessment mode, the intervention or the support measure is still there, and it's available to use. And also the brilliant thing about it, and I've got it listed here, is the settings that you've set up. So the way in which it processes the text and read the text back to you at your speeds, those things stay the same even when the exam lock is on. And I've got written here, assessing with equal opportunities at 2010. This is about giving students the platform to succeed, enabling them to benefit from their everyday support when being assessed. A normal way of working is the next point. So the only criteria, you don't need to mess around with access arrangements or ask anyone to be filling out forms. Evidence-based in-class use is all that's needed to show that this pen is the normal way of working. So as long as you have been using the ReaderPen prior to the day of assessment, then fantastic. And we've got that then record of assessment here, which is an established recorded evidence record of assessment, whereby you can be doing it as you go along with the literacy passport. You can do it in your assessments that are coming up in the summer term. And like I said, it's got written here about the off-call grades based on teacher assessments have widened the disadvantage gap for SEN learners. So make use of that exam lock feature to support your students' comprehension, to develop their vocabulary, and to establish their independent learning skills, which is obviously one of the key things to the job, right? You know, developing individuals' independence, especially at this young age. Now, that is the key things that I really wanted to mention in terms of the webinar. A couple of other things I want to just mention here in terms of getting into play in the classroom. We have handy student-led activities. So the Helping Hands Detective Agency is another booklet of resources that we give out free with anyone who wants to take trials. And essentially, it's about building student confidence using the pen. So we're talking about having evidence to show that it's their normal way of working. And we want to, if you take a trial, like I said, it's not for everyone. So you want ease of implementation. You want to be able to easily find out whether this is a method of support that the student benefits from. So you have 15 short stories followed by comprehension activities. They are characterized. It's quite nice. The characters are they have characteristics of the people that use the ReaderPens. You know, it's quite subtle. The students might not make that connection, but even if they do or don't, it makes it quite a friendly environment for them to learn within. So that's how the page looks. And these stories, as I say, are all 15 short stories and comprehension activities. They all include a ReaderPen feature guide. So they introduce the dictionary, they introduce the text reader, the recorder, and they enable the student to work through at their own pace while receiving tech support from the ReaderPen. And where they're independent and student-led activities, it makes it easy for you guys to see if they are benefiting from it. You know, maybe they're working at a better rate, a better speed. Maybe they're not asking for as much support. You know, not everyone uses them when they take the trials, but when those that do have given great feedback, they're there. And again, you know, you can book a demo with me if you want to run through these more, or I can send them to you following the session. And they have personal progression certificates within there, so the children get something back from going through them as well, which is really nice. Now, that's pretty much all from me. What I wanted to do, guys, is give you, and like I said, anything, I know there's some bits popped up in the chat, but if any of you guys have got any questions, please do share them now. And what I wanted to do, if you've got 1 minute before you go off, is I've got a survey with just 4 or 5 questions on it that will just give you the chance to ask for a bit of support, a bit more information for us, or to be kept abreast with future webinars, or to book a trial and book a demo. So I'll put that onto the screen. And like I say, thank you all for joining me today. And please do put your feedback on the form.